My name is Rachel, and if you'd met my family growing up, you'd think we were the picture-perfect suburban household. A tidy home with a white fence, holiday cards with matching sweaters, polite smiles at the neighborhood block parties. But if you stepped inside, really stepped inside, you'd see the rot under the paint. The rot was my sister, Amanda, and the termites that let it spread were my parents. Amanda and I are only 2 years apart, but it felt like a chasm. From the moment she could talk, Amanda was the golden child, the pretty one, the one who could do no wrong, no matter what she did. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, which really meant the invisible one. If Amanda threw a tantrum and smashed a lamp, my parents would say, "She's just sensitive." If I got a B+ in math, they'd ask why I didn't work harder. It got worse as we got older. Amanda flunked out of college, twice, and both times, my parents paid her tuition and blamed bad professors or toxic roommates. When I graduated with honors and landed my first job, they barely showed up for my ceremony, distracted by Amanda's latest meltdown. Still, I tried to love her. I really did. I invited her to my new housewarming when I bought my first little fixer-upper. I let her stay over when she needed space from mom and dad. I even paid her phone bill once when she claimed she'd lost her debit card. But jealousy is a corrosive thing. Amanda never could stand that I'd built something on my own, a job, a home, a life that didn't orbit her drama. And one night, while I was out with friends celebrating my promotion, she destroyed it. I came home to find my living room trashed, cushions shredded, wine splashed on the walls, framed photos smashed on the floor. In the middle of it all, a single word scrawled across my hallway mirror in lipstick: bitch. It didn't take long to figure out who did it. My neighbor saw her car in my driveway, and Amanda didn't even try to deny it. When I called her, shaking with rage, all she said was, "Maybe you shouldn't have rubbed your perfect life in my face." I hung up, my hands trembling. The worst part wasn't her betrayal. It was what happened next. My parents refused to hold her accountable. When I showed them the photos, hoping they'd finally see what she was capable of, they just sighed. She was upset, my mom said. Family is family, my dad added, as if I was the one tearing us apart by asking for a shred of justice. That night, sitting in my gutted living room, I realized I had two choices: keep letting them gaslight me into forgiving her, or stand up for myself in a way they couldn't ignore. So I did what I do best. I planned. I knew shouting at Amanda wouldn't change her. I knew begging my parents wouldn't make them grow a spine. So I decided to let the truth speak for itself, in a way that left no room for excuses. Over the next few months, I began collecting everything. Every slip Amanda made, every lie she told, every secret she thought no one knew. I knew where she hid her mess because she always ran to me when she was in trouble. I tracked the money she borrowed and never repaid, the landlord she stiffed on rent, the credit card she opened in our dad's name without asking. She'd brag-slipped more than once, tipsy and smug, not realizing I was storing every detail away. I also kept my distance. I played the role of the dutiful sister, replying to her whiny texts with just enough warmth to keep her from suspecting anything. My parents stayed willfully blind, praising me for being so patient with Amanda while ignoring the bruises she left on every part of my life. I could have gone nuclear then and there, called the cops, pressed charges for the vandalism, even sued her for the damages she caused. But that would have let my parents keep their favorite illusion, that I was cold, harsh, heartless, the bad sister for turning on family. No, if I was going to break this twisted loyalty, I needed to do it on my terms, calmly, thoroughly, and publicly. I wanted them to see Amanda for who she really was. And when they did, they wouldn't be able to unsee it. So I waited. I planned. And when the time came, I set my trap so perfectly that not even Amanda saw it coming. It started small, a dinner invite here, a casual text there. I knew Amanda couldn't resist feeling like she still had some hold over me, so I let her think she did. I'd message her, "Want to grab drinks? Or a movie night at my place?" Acting like the doting sister who just wanted to mend fences. She ate it up. She'd show up, vent about how our parents didn't understand her, and I'd nod along, tucking every self-incriminating story into my mental vault. Meanwhile, I took photos of the damage she'd done to my house before I repainted the walls. I made copies of every receipt I'd kept from repairs. I pulled my bank statements to show the thousands I'd spent fixing what she ruined. I talked to my neighbor and got a written statement confirming Amanda's car was there the night of the vandalism. But I didn't stop with the house. Over drinks, Amanda loved to brag about her latest scams, like the new credit card she'd opened under Dad's name. She giggled as she told me she planned to max it out on designer shoes and move back home before the bills hit. I pretended to laugh along, phone tucked under the table, voice memo app recording every word. It wasn't just about the money. She told me about a coworker she'd screwed over at her retail job, how she'd lied about them stealing cash from the register to cover up for her own shortfall. I got names, dates, every detail she let slip because she thought I'd never use it against her. And all the while, our parents just kept telling me how worried they were about Amanda's stress. Not a single question about how I was coping with having my home trashed. By spring, I had a dossier so thick it looked like something out of a crime drama. It wasn't just Amanda's secrets I was sitting on. It was evidence that my parents knew more than they ever admitted. Credit card bills they'd quietly paid off. Calls they made to landlords begging them not to press charges when Amanda skipped rent. Little hush-hush payments to keep her out of legal trouble. I found the paper trail by piecing together their half-finished excuses and my dad's sloppy record-keeping. Still, I waited. I needed the perfect moment, not just for Amanda, but for Mom and Dad too. I wanted to show them exactly what their blind loyalty had protected all these years. Then, like clockwork, Amanda gave me my chance. She texted me late one night, saying she needed to crash at my place again. She'd been kicked out of her apartment, no surprise, and didn't want to deal with Mom's nagging yet. I told her to come over. She stumbled in smelling like cheap vodka and stale cigarettes. I handed her a blanket and let her pass out on my couch. While she slept, I went through her purse. I found my dad's credit card, the receipts for shopping trips she'd made with it, and, jackpot, a stash of weed that she'd probably blame on someone else when it came out. I snapped photos of it all, then sat down at my dining table and drafted my plan. A letter to my parents, each page neatly laid out, photos of my ruined house, my neighbor's statement, bank statements, receipts, screenshots of Amanda's bragging texts, and a USB drive with the recordings. I didn't sugarcoat a word. I told them they had enabled her for decades, that they'd made me the villain any time I tried to stand up for myself, and that I was done playing that role. I didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't beg. Just facts. Cold, undeniable truth. The next morning, I made Amanda breakfast like nothing had happened. As she ate, I slipped out, drove to my parents' house, and left the envelope on their kitchen counter where they'd find it first thing. Then I went home, sat across from Amanda, and asked her if she'd like to stay a few more nights. I could see it in her eyes. She thought she still had me wrapped around her finger. She thought I'd always be her backup plan. But she had no idea the truth was already waiting for our parents, ready to shatter the fantasy they'd clung to for so long. And as I watched her scroll through her phone, blissfully unaware, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, calm. Because this time, there'd be no excuses. No more she's just sensitive. No more family is family. There was only the truth, and it was about to hit them harder than any tantrum Amanda could ever throw. 2 days later, the storm broke, and I'll never forget the sound of it. It started with a flurry of texts from Mom. The first was just my name, Rachel. Then, why would you do this? Then, we need to talk right now. No apology. No, I'm sorry we didn't believe you. Just shocked that I'd finally forced their eyes open. I didn't answer. I sat on my couch, the same couch Amanda had ruined and I'd replaced with my own money, and waited for them to come to me. And they did. Less than an hour later, their car pulled up outside my house. I watched through the blinds as they got out, clutching my letter and the photos like they were radioactive. Amanda was still asleep in the guest room. She had no clue the world she'd been so sure of, the world where Mom and Dad always defended her, was already crumbling. When my parents stepped inside, they didn't even take off their coats. My dad looked older than I'd ever seen him, his mouth opening and closing like he was searching for an argument that didn't exist anymore. Is it true? Mom asked, her voice tight. All of it. I didn't bother to play dumb. I pointed to the folder they were clutching. You have the proof. You tell me. Mom sat down at my kitchen table, flipping through the photos again like she was hoping they'd magically change. Why didn't you come to us sooner? She asked. The question was so ridiculous I laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to make Dad flinch. I did, I said. Over and over. And every time, you made excuses for her. You made me feel like I was the problem. You made me believe I was cruel for wanting her to take responsibility. Dad cleared his throat. She's your sister. I cut him off. No. She's a grown woman who vandalized my house, stole from you, and laughed about it. She's not my responsibility anymore. She's yours. They sat there, staring at the evidence they'd spent years pretending didn't exist. I could see the fight draining out of them. The realization that every time they'd swept her messes under the rug, they'd given her permission to burn my life down when it suited her. Upstairs, I heard Amanda's door creak open. She padded down the hallway, bleary-eyed and smug, only to freeze when she saw Mom and Dad sitting at my table with their heads in their hands. "What's going on?" she demanded. She tried to play it off with that whiny tone that always made them crumble. Did Rachel do something again? I looked her dead in the eye. No, Amanda. This time, I did something for me. Mom turned to her, face pale. Amanda, we know what you did. All of it. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear in my sister's eyes. Not the crocodile tears she could summon when she wanted pity. Real, bone-deep panic that her shield was gone. She looked at me, then back at them, her voice rising. You're seriously going to believe her over me? She's lying. She's always been jealous of me. I laughed again. Amanda, the only thing I'm jealous of is how long you got away with it. But it's over. Mom slid the folder toward her. We saw the photos. We heard the recordings. Her voice broke. Your father and I can't protect you from this. Amanda's mouth fell open. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. Dad shook his head, his eyes suddenly hard in a way I'd never seen before. And Rachel's our daughter too. We forgot that for a while. For the first time, the playing field was level. No excuses, no deflection, no more pretending that family means forgiveness when it really meant Rachel should swallow her pain to keep Amanda comfortable. I expected to feel triumphant watching my sister squirm, but what I felt instead was relief. Finally, the truth was out there. And it wasn't just her mess anymore. It was theirs too. Amanda stormed upstairs, slamming doors, rattling windows. But this time, no one followed her. No one begged her to calm down. No one told me to go comfort her. My parents sat in my kitchen, silent, forced to sit with the mess they'd spent a lifetime denying. I stood up, made myself a cup of coffee, and didn't offer them any. For once, they could sit in the discomfort alone. They'd earned it. Amanda stayed holed up in my guest room for 2 days after that. I could hear her on the phone at all hours, ranting to friends, sobbing to whoever would listen, spinning her same tired story about how I'd set her up. But this time, nobody was buying it, not even the people who used to nod along. Word was spreading. The version of me she'd painted, cold, controlling, jealous, didn't hold up when people saw what she'd really done. Mom and Dad didn't go home right away. They didn't know how to. They hovered around my house like ghosts, tiptoeing between rooms, speaking in hushed voices. They didn't ask to stay, but they didn't leave either, as if they were afraid to face the wreckage back at their own place, the shrine they'd built to Amanda's endless second chances. On the third morning, Mom knocked on my bedroom door before dawn. She sat at the edge of my bed, her face gray and drawn, like she hadn't slept in years. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. I didn't sugarcoat it for her. You can't fix it. You let it get this bad because you were too afraid to make her angry. Now you get to live with it, just like I did. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't reach out. I didn't pat her back or offer a tissue. I let her sit in it. Finally, she nodded, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. I want to make it right. With you. I almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but because it was so ridiculous to think that an apology alone could fill the sinkhole they'd dug. But I could see she meant it, at least the part about wanting to try. Start by holding her accountable, I said. No more paying her bills. No more excuses. No more pretending it's everyone else's fault. It was strange, watching my mother, the same woman who used to defend Amanda for smashing my birthday cake just to steal the spotlight, finally nod like a scolded child. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Amanda finally emerged later that afternoon, looking like hell, bloodshot eyes, hair in knots, phone clutched to her chest like a talisman. She tried one last time. She cornered Dad by the kitchen sink, voice trembling, crocodile tears ready. Daddy, please. Rachel twisted this. She hates me. She's always hated me. I didn't move from where I was standing in the hallway. I wanted to see if they'd fall for it. One last test. Dad glanced at me, then back at her, and for once, he didn't soften. He just sighed, shook his head, and said, We're done, Amanda. You need help, but we're not cleaning this up for you anymore. Her mouth fell open, and for a heartbeat I saw the mask slip. The spoiled little girl who'd never heard the word no. Then the rage came, sharp and ugly. You're choosing her over me? Her. Dad looked exhausted. No. We're choosing the truth over your lies. She spun on me like she'd claw my eyes out if she could. You think you've won? You think you're better than me? I met her stare, steady and calm. No, Amanda. I think I'm done with you. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the picture frames on my freshly painted walls, the same ones she'd once destroyed. I let her go without a word. I didn't chase her, and neither did they. After she left, Mom and Dad stood in my kitchen like strangers in a house they didn't recognize anymore. I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. They'd spent so long building their reality around Amanda's drama that they'd forgotten what it meant to see things clearly. That night, as they gathered up their coats to leave, Mom paused in the doorway. Do you hate us? She asked, her voice small. I thought about that as I looked around my house, still scarred in places, but mine again. I thought about the years I'd spent begging to be heard, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep while they coddled Amanda through every mess she made. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you, but I don't trust you yet. That's going to take time. She nodded. Dad squeezed my shoulder, an awkward, wordless gesture that said more than any apology ever could. Then they left, stepping out into the evening like two people who'd finally realized they'd been worshiping the wrong child all along. And upstairs, in the room Amanda used to call her backup plan, I shut the door and locked it. I was done being her safety net. The truth was out, and they could never pretend otherwise again. When they were gone, I sat in my silent house for what felt like hours. It was the first time in years that the air didn't feel heavy with her chaos. No slammed doors, no passive-aggressive texts, no guilt trips looping in my head on repeat. Just me, in a home I'd saved piece by piece. Not just the walls Amanda had vandalized, but the parts of myself she'd tried to tear down, too. In the weeks that followed, people started to see her for who she really was. My neighbor, the one who'd seen her car that night, quietly told the story at the next HOA meeting. Word spread through our extended family, too. All those aunts and uncles who'd bought Amanda's sob stories for years. They didn't call to gossip, they called to apologize. Not to Amanda, to me. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad were forced to sit with the mess they'd enabled. I didn't stop them from trying to rebuild a relationship with me, but I made them work for it. No more pretending it never happened. No more Sunday dinners where I was expected to plaster on a smile, while Amanda rolled her eyes across the table. She wasn't invited anymore. She moved 2 towns over to live with a boyfriend who, rumor has it, dumped her the second he realized the drama wasn't just a quirk. Sometimes I catch myself waiting for the other shoe to drop. An angry voicemail, a half-baked threat, some new smear campaign. But it never came. Amanda's power was gone, and so was her audience. Without the people who'd protected her, she had nothing left to hide behind. Mom and Dad asked if we could go to counseling together. At first, I laughed at the idea, but I said yes, on one condition. They'd sit there and hear me. Really hear me. Say all the things I'd swallowed for 20 years. How it felt to be blamed for her outbursts. How they'd brush my pain aside because her chaos was louder than my quiet need for fairness. How they taught me that family loyalty was just code for shut up and take it. It was brutal for them, sitting in that small office while I read every line from my old journals. The nights I'd cried on my bedroom floor. The day I almost called the cops and stopped myself because I knew they'd never forgive me. But I didn't soften it. They needed to sit in the truth. And to their credit, they did. Over time, it got better. Not perfect, but real. Sometimes my mom still slips up and tries to defend Amanda out of habit. I shut it down every time. She's learning. Dad, too. They're trying in small ways that matter. Showing up for me. Asking what I need instead of assuming they know. We're building something new, brick by brick, with no room for Amanda's poison. People ask if I miss having a sister. Sometimes I miss the fantasy. The version of her I used to cling to when we were kids. The sister who braided my hair, who promised we'd always be a team. But I don't miss the lies, the vandalism, the way she fed on my kindness like it was her birthright. What I have instead is this: a life that's finally mine. A house that's finally a home. Parents who know they can't just sweep things under the rug anymore. And a spine that's stronger than it's ever been. Forged in every moment, they called me cruel for wanting to be treated with respect. Sometimes I still keep that folder in my desk drawer, the photos, the receipts, the recordings. Not because I needed to hold anything over her head, but because it reminds me of the day I stopped letting my family gaslight me into being small and quiet. The day I chose the truth over keeping the peace. That's the secret no one tells you about revenge. The sweetest part isn't watching them squirm. It's the moment you realize they can't twist you up anymore, that you can stand in the wreckage of everything they broke and say, "This is mine now," and you don't get to touch it again. So when people ask how it ended, I tell them the truth. Amanda didn't destroy me. She set me free. And that, in the end, is what left them speechless.